Culture. You want to question the culture? Oh, I'm going in.
Hey,
you are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
You're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now, we've been talking about opponents on the Gopher schedule and diving in deep the last 3 days now. We're going through the entire schedule, but we had to divert today. We had to get away from that today because we're changing plans. We're shifting our agenda because today we are talking about the culture that was called into question for the Gophers yesterday. Then we're going to speak with Max Chadwick over at PFF about Minnesota and about Brevyn Spann-Ford. And then also we're going to wrap it up with some media day questions prior to the Gophers taking the stage. But we have to talk about the culture question. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit subscribe over on YouTube and follow wherever you get the podcast at Locked On Golden Gophers. Now, like I said, we're pushing Northwestern's talk to tomorrow because we got to talk about the attempted sabotage of what feels like 3 straight years now. When called into question, the culture that the Minnesota Gophers program has showed itself tenfold. Now, if you haven't heard, yesterday, Front Office Sports released an article absolutely kind of ripping the Gophers program and trying to burn down Dinkytown to the ground, and they ended up burning themselves in the process. One writer over at Front Office Sports who quote tweeted the article even said that the article itself and what they learned about the Gophers was terrifying. Now, look, the article went on to call the row the boat culture cult-like and toxic, and Row the Boat got ragged for its phrasing and all of that. But let's not act like that isn't the same type of thing as when coaches try to push around all gas, no brakes, or clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Or even, heck, roll Tide, roll Beavs, roll whatever else we're going to end up rolling. Though all of those things, they are the exact same type of mantra, exact same type of space that coaches are getting into with those things. So it's a little bit crazy that they were trying to attack the phrasing of row the boat. Now, the main things that this article tried to call out and call into question were things like conditioning as punishments, acronyms that Coach Fleck was using, and him making the group applaud him when he would walk into a room, and if he wasn't satisfactory, he'd make them do it again as he would leave the room. Now, let's talk about those things. I've been hitting the line for killers on the basketball court since I was about 7 years old. And that wasn't just to stay in shape. Now, I get that we can't go over the top when we're going with our conditioning as a punishment, but conditioning as a punishment is happening in every single college in America, in every single sport that you are finding out there in America. So let's not try to go over the top with something like that. Then on top of that, acronyms are everywhere. Life, slang, texting, the business world. I can't tell you how many CMPs at the ACAs and blah, blah, blah that I hear in the business world on a daily basis. Now, the funniest thing is one of the acronyms that was called out in the article was family. And if you haven't heard about family before, it's forget about me, I love you. It's about forgetting yourself and putting the team first, putting your brothers first. And that was what was called out. And one of the players, anonymous players that was referenced in this, talking about family, said he wants us to forget about ourselves. Like, yeah, bud, that's what a modern day team is. That's what being a part of a team and sacrificing for a team does. So yes, forget about you and be a part of the team. It's not that hard to understand. Now let's talk about the clapping thing, because the clapping thing could be strange. It could be weird. And you know what? I think it is slightly strange, but the whole staff as a particular is very particular about the clapping in warm-ups that we see on an everyday basis, from Gophers practices, from warming up on the field, where they break it down and they clap. And if they don't do it right, I've seen them redo it if it's not right. It's not about the clapping itself. It's about the discipline. It's about not settling for close or almost good enough. It's about getting it right the first time. So that's probably where that is coming from. Now, like I said, this culture isn't for everyone. I've said it. Players have said it. Other media that covers the Gophers has said it. Even former Gopher and NFL player Keandre Thomas made a great point yesterday on Twitter, where he said the culture might not be for everybody, but if you're upset and it isn't for you, you don't have to try and get the man fired. This is exactly what the modern day transfer portal is for. You get one free. So go if it's not for you. But those who understand the coaching style, those who understand the culture, those who get what is being asked of them in their recruitment, in their time with the program, they came out and they showed it. And they showed that they like what it is and they are a part of it. It wasn't just one or two players coming by like, no, Coach Fleck never did that. Upon quick glance, I didn't even go and count and tally up and get everything. Upon quick glance, not intricately searching the interwebs, I counted over 35 plus players, alumni who spoke up against the claims immediately, saying this is bull. This is not what's happening. It's hard, yes, but it's not toxic. That's past players, that's current players. Heck, it's even a few current 2024 commits. Starters, bench guys, freshmen, 6 years, all ages, all experiences came out, showed out, and showed love for Coach Fleck and the culture that he actually has here. Speaking to both not only on the field, but the concepts off the field and growing into young man, and speaking of the 4 areas that they're growing in spiritually, socially, academically, and athletically. So don't attack the culture, because that speaks about what the culture is. The defending of players all over, coaches all over, parents got involved, saying, no, that is not what this culture and Coach Fleck are all about. Even Coach Debo, who was a player for the Gophers for multiple years, went on to experience other programs and came back to coach. That is how much he loved this culture. And it isn't just because of this article why he came out and said that. He's been saying it in the pressers that I've been in since he has come back for coaching. It's not new. Multiple players have come back extra years. Chris Bell, Tanner Morgan, John Michael Schmitz, Mo Ibrahim, Brevyn Spann-Ford, Nathan Bowe, Tyler Nubin, Axel Rushmeyer, Cole Kramer. And you can't even say all of those players, well, it's because they're favorites and because some of those players, they're favorites, so that's why they chose to stay. Some of those players didn't play until year 4 or year 5. Nathan Bowe hasn't really started a game unless somebody was hurt until this upcoming season. Axel Rushmeyer didn't get really much time except for a handful of sprinkled things during the COVID year until his final season. You can't even say, oh, well, they did it because Mo and JMS and all them, they just did it because, no, I don't want to hear that. All those guys could have left early for the NFL. Mo, JMS, Brevyn, Nubin, all of them could have left earlier if this culture was so toxic. They had the opportunity to take a shot at the NFL. They didn't need to come back and try to boost their NFL draft stock. So it's just crazy. It's wild. Now, not everything is for everyone, but to go on and try to virally put out a hit piece out there in the midst of what is happening with Northwestern and the seriousness of all of that, in the midst of Harbaugh getting suspended for recruiting infractions, that's the word I'm looking for there. Front Office Sports knew what they were doing when they dropped this article. They were supposedly talking to the players last month. Well, guess what picked up last month? The Northwestern stuff hit and officially dropped last month. The second that dropped, they started diving in. We heard this one thing. Maybe we can dive a little closer. You got to dive in fully. If you're going to go out there and talk to anonymous players, you got to go and get the other side. Now, just talking to the athletic director once and maybe one other player who ended up not going the way you wanted and putting his quote in there at the beginning doesn't mean you've done your research thoroughly on the other side of things. Otherwise, you wouldn't have 35 plus players and former players coming out and saying this is absolute crap. They didn't do their due diligence. The timing of this article was dropped intentionally in the midst of the Big Ten Media Days, one day prior to Minnesota being up at the podium, but the plan backfired. We've went through this before. We had the Val Martin saga last summer. I'm sure we had something the summer before that too. I'm sure a handful of the statements in this article probably came from Val Martin. A lot of them sounded very similar to that one player who went on a Twitter tirade. But the loud defense from the players, the alums, the commits, the coaches, and even the parents speaks for itself. Don't buy the BS, but I'm glad to see the team come together, and hopefully they can use this as fuel for 2023. But culture is alive and strong here, and we'll keep rowing the boat on the show just like the Gophers will keep rowing the boat on the field and off the field. Now, next, we're going to talk with Max Chadwick over at PFF. He's got an article dropping today. So you can head on over to pff.com today and check out an article from Brevyn Spann-Ford. And we're going to talk with Max Chadwick coming up next. First, I want to talk to you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every potential new hire can feel like a high-stakes wager, a poker match of sorts for your small business. And you want to be 100% certain that you're bringing that pot in. You're getting the right, best qualified candidates available. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because they help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And I'm telling you, every time I hear the word free, if it's free, it's me, free 99, I'm all about it. So why don't you give it a look over at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Anywhere you go when it comes to jobs, that's my go-to, whether it be networking, whether it be looking for a job or any of that. I'm going to LinkedIn, and you should too. And so when you're posting about your job, you should do it over at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. You get to post about it for free. You get tools like hiring tools, screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates that you want to talk to with the right skills and experience, and quickly prioritize them in the interviewing and hiring process. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find those qualified candidates faster and for free. Post about your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Gophers fans, you're listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's Kane Rob, and I am joined today by Max Chadwick of PFF, college football analyst and host of the Preferred Walk-On. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, Max.
Of course, Kane. I really, really appreciate you taking me on, man.
For sure. And Gophers fans, you should be heavily interested in what Max has to say, because today, July 27th, you can head on over to pff.com, and he's got an article with some info on Brevyn Spann-Ford, and he'll also later this summer be having a video dropping with an interview with him as well. Now, people on the show know Brevyn Spann-Ford is my guy. His dad is my godfather. It's a weird connection, but
Wow.
You're definitely going to want to go over and check that out over on PFF today. And let's stick with Brevyn Spann-Ford to kick this thing off. Where do you see Brevyn Spann-Ford when it comes to the tight ends in the conference, and what intrigues you the most about him?
Well, first of all, man, I did not know that about your relationship with him. Well, that's awesome. But if you ask me, like, who's the best big tight end in the Big Ten, I would say Brevyn Spann-Ford. I truly think he's the best tight end in the conference right now. And I honestly, I ranked him, and I think there's an argument to be made with another guy, Texas tight end, Jatavion Sanders. But I ranked Brevyn Spann-Ford as the #2 tight end in college football, behind, of course, Brock Bowers, who looks like one of the greatest tight ends in college football history, honestly. But Brevyn, I mean, you can make the argument that when it comes to as a receiver and run blocker, I mean, Brevyn might be the most well-rounded tight end in the country. You know, he had an excellent run blocking grade last year, had the second highest run blocking grade last year, also was fourth in yards per route run among all tight ends last year. I mean, he was a dominant run blocker, still a really good receiver too, all at 6'7", 270 pounds. I mean, he's a massive, massive human being, especially at the tight end position. So yeah, man, I mean, I truly think he's the best tight end in the Big Ten easily. And then I think he's also probably at least a top 3 tight end in college football, in my opinion.
Look, Gophers fans, I didn't pay him to say any of this. Now, you guys know that I've been on here like he was robbed last year from the 3rd team All Big Ten. And I've been saying I think he's a top 5 tight end. I'd put him in the top 3. Look, you got Max here who's telling you the truth, and he is spitting facts over here. So Brevyn Spann-Ford, give him some respect. Hopefully the national media will come around on him as well. But what do you see when it comes to, I'm guessing as you kind of dove in on your analysis with Brevyn and whatnot, you probably watched some film too. So what did you see from the young quarterback in Ethan Kaliakmanis? He's taken over the reins from Tanner Morgan this year. And, you know, a lot of Gophers fans are excited, but when it comes to looking at the national rankings across the conference with the quarterbacks, he's coming in at like 10th and 12th. And I get it. He's a young guy. People haven't seen much. If you just look at the box score, you're seeing 3 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. But what did you see from a young quarterback that maybe showed promise or any concern?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, Tanner Morgan, I thought was extremely underrated last year. No, people kind of hate on him because he was there forever, and he's been there. He's been the starting quarterback since like 2019, right? I believe he was. So he was like a 4-year starter for Minnesota.
He came in
right?
2018,
yeah,
but
right.
He was for a very long time. People were talking about how he probably couldn't be on his parents' insurance anymore because he was just, but yes, I agree with you. He probably got a little bit too much disdain from the length he was here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people, I listen, man. I mean, you take advantage. I also would have taken advantage of it. You know, Tanner Morgan, obviously not an NFL quarterback. So, like, why not stay at the Power 5 level as long as possible? So I always kind of hate that when people are like making fun of guys for staying in college for a while. It's like, dude, I would do the same thing, man, if I was him. But speaking about Ethan Kaliakmanis, though, I actually really liked what I saw from him. I actually – I grew up a huge Penn State fan. I still root for the Nittany Lions, even though I'm supposed to be an unbiased college football journalist. But I actually was able to go to the whiteout game last year, which was against Minnesota. And Kaliakmanis was the starter in that game because Tanner Morgan was out, I believe, with a shoulder injury in that game. But yeah, Kaliakmanis, I thought, played pretty well in that game. And also, I thought he played pretty well really the entire season when he played. And he played a good amount of snaps last year. He played 374 snaps. According to our database, which, that's like a starter's level amount of snaps because Tanner Morgan was hurt for a good portion of the season. So, yeah, I mean, I thought he played pretty well. He finished with like a 75 grade for PFF, which is pretty solid too. So, yeah, I mean, listen, he's got Brevyn Spann-Ford to throw to, who's like not only a great blocker, but a really good receiver at the tight end position. Chris Outman-Bell is still there as well, the receiver who I really like. I think Kaliakmanis, I don't think he'll be as good as Tanner Morgan, but I don't think this is going to be Minnesota's in trouble because of who's under center. I still think Kaliakmanis is a pretty solid enough quarterback.
Yeah, I'm excited for you, or I'm excited for him, and I'm excited you got to see the Penn State game because that was actually his first start ever, first start in a whiteout. I mean, I think he held his own. He wasn't really given the full leeway to go out there and throw the ball all over, but I think he showed at least that silent confidence, that not buckling in one of the most hostile environments in the college football landscape. So, you know what? Hopefully it's just continuing to grow from there. But when we look at the Gophers, they've got a tough schedule this year. You don't have to tell fans twice about that one. But when you look at Minnesota, are there any names that have surprised you on the roster as you've kind of looked over them as we head into the 2023 season? Or are there any positions that concern you with so many people leaving to the NFL or graduating?
Yeah, I think, you look at that offensive line, and I think that, you lose John Michael Schmitz, who, according to PFF's database, was one of the better centers. Actually, I would say the best center in college football last year. I actually thought he got robbed of the Remington Trophy, and also, like, maybe he could have been in the running for the Outland Trophy, too. I thought, John Michael Schmitz really went underrated. So you lose him, but they still have a pretty solid enough offensive line. They always seem to have a really solid offensive line. I like Quinn Carroll. Nathan Bowe looked really good when he was on the field last year, so I'm excited about him. He should be the starting center. And then, you got Corey Crooms coming in at receiver. I liked what he was able to do at Western Michigan. Yeah, there's always guys. Tyler Nubin, I think the free safety is probably a top 15 to 20 safety in college football, I would say. I really think he's an underrated player. So he should be the leader of that defense. But yeah, I mean, listen, you lose some key pieces for sure, especially along the offensive line, and a quarterback too. But I still like, the weapons that they have there with Daniel Jackson, Chris Allen-Bell, Brevyn Spann-Ford. Like we mentioned before, Callie McManus, I think is a solid enough quarterback there. It's going to be different now without Mo Ibrahim, who's a great running back. Sean Tyler, the transfer, again, from Western Michigan, probably looks like to be the starter there. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year for sure. But I still think Minnesota's got enough pieces on the team to be a contender in the Big Ten West.
I'm with you. And there's a lot of young names on this team that I think will have your interest peaked throughout the year, but I think it'll get a lot more credit across the media landscape. I think Zach Evans is another running back that's going to intrigue folks with Sean Tyler. So I think the Gophers are in good hands. They've got good coaching here with the team. So hopefully they can at least be in that contention like you were saying. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on some of these other Big Ten West programs. Who do you have winning the West this year? Is it Wisconsin with their complete retool? Is it Iowa with the new names coming in? Is it Minnesota? Who do you think has the best shot at winning the West in 2023?
That's always the big question in the Big Ten, because you always know the Big Ten East is usually going to come down to either Ohio State or Michigan, with maybe Penn State can make a run here and there. And then the Big Ten West is always up for grabs, This year in the Big Ten West, I think, again, it's super close between a lot of teams. I think Minnesota is certainly in the mix there. I would put some other schools in there too, but I think that the one I'm going to go to is like you mentioned before, Wisconsin. I really think they got a lot of really good pieces on that offense. Tanner Mordecai comes over from SMU. I really liked him as the quarterback there. They got Braylon Allen, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country. And then the big change, obviously, is they get a top 10 head coach in college football in Luke Fickell. And honestly, that was the grand slam. That was the best hire of the offseason, I thought, was Luke Fickell going there, because I always thought he was going to wait for a job like potentially Ohio State to open up. And, I was kind of surprised when he left Cincinnati to take the Wisconsin job, which is definitely a better job, but it's still, I don't think it was enough of a better job for him to leave. I was surprised that he did, but Wisconsin fans should be very, very happy with him. I think he's a terrific coach. And then also they got Phil Longo, the offensive coordinator, who I think is a really good offensive coordinator too, coming from North Carolina. They're going to run like an air raid offense, which is something that I thought I would never see at Wisconsin. They usually always have the 22 personnel out there, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, going to run the ball down your throat. They're going to air it out this year. And they still have a great run game with Braylon Allen there. But, they're going to air it out a lot more. So, yeah, I think Wisconsin is probably the team I would pick. And if you're asking me for a dark horse Big Ten team to compete for a college football playoff, I don't think they will. But I think the Badgers, if they transform under Luke Fickell, look out for them next year.
All right, man. You've got all of my Gophers listeners just stopping listening, hitting the unsubscribe. They're done with me. But no, I think Wisconsin could be a big-time team this year. I'm a little bit more skeptical, not just because I'm a Gopher fan, but there are some concerns with just huge system changes and how much success you can find in year one. But long-term, I agree with you. I think that hire was a knock out of the park. I think that they're going to be really happy with how things develop there. But I've got 2 more questions for you that I just have to get your thoughts. The first one is, yesterday I put out there that I think UNC, North Carolina, is equal to or potentially better than Wisconsin and Iowa in the 2023 season. Are you with me on this one, or are you thinking I'm way off base? What are your thoughts here?
Wisconsin. So you're saying North Carolina is better than Wisconsin and Iowa is what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Either better or like right on that same playing field.
Oh, I think that's very fair. I think that's very fair. I think, putting them right in the same playing field is fair, because obviously you got, outside of Caleb Williams, you have the best quarterback in college football and in the 2024 draft in Drake May. He's special, man. So you got him, but I always, a lot of people say, oh, North Carolina is a playoff contender in the ACC, or North Carolina is going to, or even Drake May's Heisman odds. I think I don't really buy him winning the Heisman, even though I do think he's the second best quarterback in the country, just because, I think they're going to be like an 8-4 team next year. And I don't know how they're going to win too many more games of that, because you lose Josh Downs, you lose Antoine Green, you lose some pieces on that offensive line. That offensive line already was bad last year. And so Drake May is kind of going to be by himself. And if he has another amazing year, it's going to prove to NFL evaluators like, okay, this guy was doing this by himself. Like, he could definitely carry a franchise. Maybe he could be the first pick because of that. But yeah, man, I'm lose Phil Longo too, the offensive coordinator, who I really like I mentioned before, going to Wisconsin. So yeah, I think putting him on the same tier though as Wisconsin and Iowa, I think that's certainly fair. I think you can make an argument that all three of those teams are, top 30, top 35 teams in college football, but maybe not top 25 teams in college football. They're probably like right in that 26 to 35 range, I would probably say.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And look, if North Carolina wants to lose 4 games, as long as one is to Minnesota this year, I'm okay with it. I'm here for it. So the final question I have for you is, how do you think UCLA and USC will come into the Big Ten right away? Do you think it'll be an adjustment process? Do you think they'll struggle with more of that ground and pound game? Or do you think they're going to come in and it's going to be the same old, same old? They're going to be 10 plus win schools in the Big Ten right away?
That's a good question. First of all, I can't wait to watch UCLA and USC playing a November game in Iowa. I think that's going to be hilarious to watch those schools do that. But honestly, man, yes, the physicality is going to be different and something that they've never dealt with at the Pac-12 level. So that'll be an adjustment. However, it'd also be an adjustment for the Big Ten, because you look at that Ohio State passing game and you look at how much Big Ten teams struggled to defend them. And obviously they got the best passing game in college football, but I would say USC is like going to be up there as well too. So yes, Caleb Williams will not be there when the USC is in the Big Ten, but they have a 5-star backup quarterback in Malachi Nelson there. They always bring in these great receivers. Lincoln Riley, I think, is the best offensive mind in college football. Defensively, it's going to be an issue, of course. And also UCLA too. UCLA has the number 2 quarterback in the 2023 recruiting class in Dante Moore coming in this year, who might honestly start as a true freshman. So yeah, he's a number 3 overall recruit. You got Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator. So yes, physicality wise is going to be different. They're not going to be used to A gap, B gap football, every single play, but also the Big Ten is not going to be very used to them airing it out like they're gonna with Lincoln Riley and Chip Kelly. And, the only taste they've really had of that has been Ohio State. And you see how successful they've been. Now, I don't know if they'll be as successful as the Buckeyes have been over the last few years, but I do think, it's going to be not only adjustment for USC and UCLA, it's going to be an adjustment for the rest of the Big Ten dealing with these probably high-powered offenses they're going to have.
Right. No, I'm with you. We see the high-powered offense with Ohio State. If they can somehow adjust and find a way to hang around with that physicality, they could be dangerous teams in this conference. But I want to thank you so much for coming out here and joining us with Locked On Golden Gophers. Gophers fans, you definitely need to go follow him over on Twitter. We've got his handle on the screen, but for those of you listening on the audio side, it is Max Chadwick, CFB. And you're going to want to go head on over to PFF.com and check out his latest article on Brevyn Spann-Ford. Anything else you want to let the listeners know, Max?
No, that's basically it. You could also, you mentioned at the start of the show, but yeah, I'm posting every interview that I'm doing with a ton of players that we got right now. I'm posting every interview in its entirety over on my YouTube channel, Preferred Walk On, like you mentioned before. So if you want to watch the entire Brevyn Spann-Ford interview, it's not out now, but it'll be out before the season kicks off for sure.
Absolutely. You're definitely going to want to do that. Thanks you again for coming on, Max. We'll definitely have to get you back on maybe closer towards the end of the season and reevaluating some of these Gophers players. All right, folks, the final thing that we are talking about here today is Media Day thoughts. Now, just quick questions that I'm hoping will get maybe some answers or question to the coach himself on the stage is how much well, first of all, the first question we have about everything is how much that article we talked about today is going to take over the media days. It's going to get asked probably 3-4 different times. Coach Fleck will address it and we'll see what happens, but hopefully it doesn't deter from everything that they came there to talk about, because there are other questions at hand that we would like to know. Like, will there be any insight from the running back room? Will we get any talk about Darius Taylor playing? Will we get any talk about Zach Evans potentially being a starter with Sean Tyler? How in depth will we get with the running backs? We probably won't get a lot, but will we glean any insights? That'll be something to look at. We'll also want to hear if he brings up anything about depth or concerns in that area, anything that are flashes of what they're currently working on, what they see as an area of growth for the upcoming season. Finally, we'll get to hear maybe if he's going to pass the ball a bit more, because leaning towards almost 70% running last year, Mo Ibrahim's gone. So will they be adjusting to more of a passing style? We'll see if they glean any insights there. But then the final thing that we want to look at is the players that will be there. Chris Bell, Brevyn Spann-Ford, Tyler Nubin, all guys who have stayed extra years. How will the players address the subject of this front office sports article? Will it be short and sweet, or will they go to bat and try to put an end to hearing this stuff every single offseason? Those are the things I'm kind of interested in looking at for the Big Ten Media Days, but I'm excited to tap in. Tomorrow, we're going to get back to the Behind the Enemy Lines, talking about Northwestern. I will see you there. Row the boat, Sky Go Gophers, and as always, don't forget to subscribe.